Hello, I'm Michael Chigani, and this is Straight Talk. With me today is Tommy Cheung. Tommy Cheung, you are an executive councillor, you're a legislative councillor representing the catering sector, and you're also chairman of the Liberal Party. We're going to talk about catering sector, obviously, today, right?
Yes.
We've just had some new rules about social distancing. Restaurants, you cannot have more than 4 people at a table, and each table must be at least 6 feet apart from each other. Now, it's going to last for 2 weeks initially. I want to ask you this. You obviously are very worried about the catering sector and whether it can survive. Give me an honest answer. At the end of this coronavirus, we don't know when it's going to end. At the end of it, do you foresee a large number of closures of restaurants and bars?
In September, I was the first one that said if this riots continue until November 24th, which I thought it would, I said I will see 1,000 restaurants closing. A lot of people thought I overestimated.
Did 1,000 close?
Of course it did. And in September and December, I was saying, when people asked me, did you, was it a wrong estimate? I said, yes. On my 25 years of being a politician, this time I may be wrong. But I'm wrong in underestimating, not overestimating. So they say, how many do you see? I said, if this doesn't stop, we're seeing 1,000 to 2,000. That was in December when I mentioned it.
But now it's the end of March, and we're still stuck with this coronavirus. What do you think the percentage of closures will be, or the number of restaurants and bars?
I don't want to guess anymore, because it will be something that, to me, it's very depressing.
Do you see a large number of?
Yes.
You do see a large number.
In fact, I called a 9% unemployment rate in my industry 3-4 weeks ago. When seeing the February sales, we're doing about 20% of a year ago. Despite this is a leap year and we have 1 more day, we're doing 20%. And in the airport, unfortunately, we're doing single digit. So we need a lot of help, as I tell the government. Whether we stay afloat, whether we keep more ongoing businesses and not seeing them folding and going out of business, we need help from the government.
Yes. Now, you need help from the government. You don't want to take a guess as to how many restaurants and bars will close or the number of unemployed in the catering sector, right? But you estimate it will be a very, very high number.
It will be a high number. This time it's going to
higher than 1,000 that you predicted for the protests?
Yes, I think several thousand. Already in December, when I mentioned 1 to 2, don't forget the Secretary for Welfare and Labour. He said in an interview in February, he said, when Tommy Cheung was talking about 1 to 2,000 in December, he was talking about 1 to 2,000. But now it is happening. So if you see by February, the government come out and confirming these numbers, that means I cannot be wrong. But as I predicted in December, come February, I said, this is what's going to happen. And we don't see the coronavirus hitting us like the way it did. So, there has to be a heck a lot more. We can't weather this storm on our own anymore.
Okay, on that note, let's have a look at the bite.
I have always said, please pay our rent, please pay our salary, and please don't collect rates or land taxes.
That's you, just a few days ago.
A week ago.
A week ago, saying, pay the rent, don't collect rates. You look desperate there. I can understand that. You look desperate, you look like, the world has come crashing down on the catering industry. Has the government done enough? You say pay the rent, pay. Do you mean to say that the government should cover all the expenses of restaurants and bars?
Let me tell you, when I said that, it was actually before the government announcing this new piece of legislation.
Right.
That afternoon at 1:30, I went, talking to the press, announcing that I have over thousands of restaurants signing up on a voluntary basis, things that the trade decided we could do collectively, voluntarily to help the government. There were 8 things that we said we want to do. The mask, the temperature, and the alcohol, all 3 things. We said we're going to only seat half the people at night after 6:30, because we checking with all my restaurants, fast food or otherwise, the only business nowadays that they do, and in fact lunchtime being very quick, breakfast very quick, they eat and they go. So this socializing, staying, after the meals, will not happen in those, and in those 2, lunch and breakfast. So we were saying, let's do lunch and breakfast without the restriction, but we're willing to do it after 6:30. Let's all do half. And not only that, we're going to encourage, food to go. If you buy, and take away your food, we do 20% off, minimum, to encourage people, buying and not eating, on the premise. So there were 8 things that we decided we want to do on a voluntary basis.
But now the government has put in new rules that it's got to be applied the whole day.
Yes, so that's, in fact, when I said that, I said if the government decided to do more than this, we're already losing on a voluntary basis. We need help. But if the government decides to legislate and get tougher, then I said the only way out is you need to help us with our rent.
But how do you want the government to help you to pay your rent? Why don't you ask the landlords to stop asking for rent or cut rents?
Well, in fact, I'm appealing to them now.
Have they listened to you, the landlords? Surely at this time they should, right?
Most of them, during, I would say some of them, when I went through the rounds in September, some reduced the rent to 6 months or 3 months, half the rent that they're paying. Most most ignore me, basically.
Are they still ignoring you? Are the landlords still ignoring
But by February, most of them now are willing to give February and March, or at least February or March. Some are half, some are 20, some are 30, most of them.
Why not just stop collecting rent for 2 months?
Except 3 landlords. Well, landlords were saying always, we have a contract. We've got our commitments. We've got our bills to pay. But in this particular instance, I'm asking landlord to help us with the 2 weeks that now the government is legislating for us to do all these. It's really hurting our business.
Stop the rent for 2 weeks.
Stop the rent. Give us no rent. Don't charge us rent for 2 weeks during this period.
Have they agreed?
I don't know. I'm appealing. I'm hoping the chief executive will also talk to them. Now, this is a very critical situation. Normally, we pay rent on the first day of the month, and this is now the time of the month, which we also have to pay salary, usually on the 5th day. And if we don't pay salary after that day, it's a criminal offense. So, which is why I'm appealing to landlord. My guys can probably, if at all, pay salary. So we have no money to pay rent. If you throw us out, if you slap us with an injunction or send your lawyers in, then you're throwing us out in the street, and all the employees in the restaurant too.
You wanted the government to help you in what way? The Financial Secretary already announced some measures, and the Chief Secretary, Matthew Cheung, said in his blog that help is coming. But what do you want the government to do?
One, we need fast help. Okay, very fast help.
What kind of help? Can you define the help?
Rent and salary.
You want the government to pay the rent, or you want landlords to cut the rent?
Well, we want both. I don't believe, even if I ask the government to pay all our rent, that they can, and they can do it in a short time.
You think the government can afford that?
Well, if they cannot afford it, neither can my constituents. When they fold up, when they throw, hundreds of thousands of jobs out on the street, sooner or later the government have to foot that bill too. They can't walk away.
If, you predicted thousands of restaurants will close. If that happens, then what's the number of unemployed? You just said hundreds of thousands. Will it be that many?
We started with 230,000 in May of last year, and we were about 20,000 short. Now we are not only not short of people. I assume if they do a check of all the restaurants employing full-time and part-time, I think we're already dumping 50,000, 60,000 jobs out.
You're losing 50,000, 60,000 jobs already.
Already, and a lot of these part-time helpers are no longer still getting part-time job, and even full-time employees will probably be taking days off without pay like any other industry. So we are in a basically very difficult situation, if I only use the word difficult.
Okay.
And if the government doesn't come in to help, we cannot survive.
All right. Quick break. See you soon. Don't go away. Thanks for staying with us. This is Straight Talk. With me is Tommy Cheung. Tommy Cheung, you are a legislator representing the catering industry, also an executive council member. Now, Mr. Cheung, you said 30, 40, 50,000 jobs, thousands of restaurants will close because of this. With this new rule of 6 feet apart for each table and no more than 4 people per table, your family of 5 goes in there, what happens?
2 tables they have to sit there.
2 and 3.
2 and 3, yes. There is nothing that the restaurant can do, and I hope my customers will understand this.
But there are
is the
some
law.
restaurants with like 4 or 5 tables, very, very small restaurants. How can they have 6 feet apart?
So basically that's why in the law we put in a petitioning. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Basically, we're talking about saliva traveling. They want to keep a distance of 1.5 meters. So if your table to table cannot have 1.5 meters, you could put a petition, okay, in between the 2 tables. That would stop, the saliva from flowing over to the other table.
Instead of having these rules for 2 weeks, why not just shut the restaurants for 2 weeks? And then hopefully things will get a lot better and then restart, because it's very difficult to do business this way anyway, right? You have far fewer customers coming in and you have to observe these rules. Just bite the bullet and say, all right, close it down for 2 weeks. Some other countries have done that. So why don't we do that too?
We are different from some other countries. Our staff basically in Hong Kong are used to wearing masks, including our kitchen chef. Other countries do not wear masks. They eat salads, which is not even cooked.
Right.
And still on the buffet table, So you're exposed to a lot of risk. In Hong Kong, we have been doing that for like 8 weeks now. Everybody wearing masks.
I know the buffets are gone.
The buffets are gone. We all go into set meals, set dinners, And we are used to going into what we're doing now. Since SARS, 17 years ago. We wear masks, we have alcohol, we take the temperature, long before other countries are used to doing
So you
this.
don't think we should just shut it down for 2 weeks?
Well, it's a government's call, okay? If the government decided that they need to shut us down, then they would, okay? So it's a government's call what they should do. Now, of course, I am, unless the government, when they shut us down, put up the money and say, now, go and pay your salary. Take this money and pay the salary.
Sure.
There's always a lag between closing down and what the government will come up to help us,
Well,
even if they do.
Talk about government. Let's see what this government official has to say.
The social distancing, I want to emphasize again, in the coming 2 weeks is very, very critical.
Now, that's Sophia Chan, the health secretary. She said coming 2 weeks, very, very critical. If we don't improve, the government will have a lot of other tools to extend it, to say, they talked about banning alcohol, then they backtracked. They could bring that back again, right? Or they could shut down your opening hours, right? Do you foresee that happening?
If things get worse, if what we're doing in the next 2 weeks does not help, the escalating of the COVID virus, if we don't level, these cases, then obviously the government have to think of what they need to do.
You fought against the alcohol ban, and now that is not included in the new rules. But you could see that coming, right? The government can still do that.
Well, actually, if you look at what the chief executive was saying Monday when she announced it, she said this is one of the suggestions that was given to her. And this is some options that she is thinking. But she will consult the trade, which she did 2 days later.
Including you, right?
Including me and 9 other people from the trade, who either chairman of the food associations, also for karaoke, bars and ballroom operators, etc. So basically, alcohol is it's easy for the medical practitioners to think because people drink alcohol, they tend to stick around. They will be bar hopping, spending the whole night drinking. And when they drink a bit more, they let their guard down. I can understand that. Which is why we're saying, let's help. Okay, we're willing to do half. We're willing to have our staff tell our customers, when you drink, of course, you take your mask off.
Sure.
But you don't drink all night, non-stop. So could you put your mask back when you converse, when you talk? We're saying we will try to do where we only do half the seating, and then we will space them off, hopefully 1.5 meters off. We were willing to do that voluntarily. We are throwing live band out. We're not going to have live band.
But now you don't even have the, now it's the law. But I want to ask you this, Mr. Cheong. It's fine, okay, you've got distancing, the tables are further apart, but yet the restaurant trade in Hong Kong, the catering industry, has always depended a lot also on tourists coming to Hong Kong. We have virtually zero. The whole world is in lockdown, right? Can the catering industry survive on local customers alone?
Yes, we can survive.
You can?
But
without the tourists, you can?
But we're not making money, so there's still a lot of fine-tuning that we need to do without the tourists.
So the Hong Kong catering industry actually can survive without, like we used to have 40, 50 million mainland tourists coming every year to Hong Kong. Obviously, they go to restaurants, they go to bars, they live in hotels. That propped up our service industry, quite a lot, right?
Yes.
But that's all gone now. That's all gone now. Yet you think we can survive?
And they're not coming back.
They're not going to come back. So
surviving is one thing. Okay?
Making a profit is another.
Making a profit is another thing. Right now, my trade is thinking about survival. Of course, we need to cut our cost. We need to have adequate cash flow. We need to, sooner or later, hopefully, where business rebounds, the government giving out $10,000 to all of us, that's $70 billion.
That's correct.
Hopefully, we'll get them in September. And hopefully, because we all have small kitchens at home, and people are not used to. I know a lot of housewives that don't go to the wet market. I go to the wet market more than the housewives do in Hong Kong. Even housewives, not working mothers. So a lot of them don't cook.
Right.
So eventually they'll come out and eat. Obviously, some restaurants have to go. They will find their own equilibrium to a point where so many can survive. Usually it's a survival of the
But
fittest.
finding the equilibrium, would that include raising prices? Now, this is a lot of people concerned that you say the restaurants and the bars, the catering industry, they're surviving, not making a profit, but they can survive based only on the local clientele. Does that include raising prices?
No.
They will keep the prices stable?
Or even reduce prices.
Why?
I think you're seeing, I got no problem when I ask my trade to give at least a minimum 20% on takeaway food. Some told me I even do more. So I said, I'm not restricting you not to do more. So a lot of people are finding ways to survive. And apparently, even 4 or 5 months ago, I've been telling people, if you reduce prices, you will see business coming in. Hong Kong restaurant customers are very shrewd. They know what they want. They know what you are selling. They know the kind of service you have and the quality of food you have. If you reduce prices, you will see business coming in.
But then if you reduce prices, as you pointed out, they're struggling now. They're fighting to survive. Landlords have so far not agreed to stop rents. Government aid hasn't yet come. And then if they reduce prices even more, how can they possibly survive?
Which is why some will not survive. And that's why we see restaurants close by the thousands, not by the hundreds. Government's help came, okay, in terms of the 80,000 and 200,000 that the government was giving out in early part of March. Of course, if you say enough, nothing is enough, okay? But it did arrive for a lot of us.
But how can the government possibly pay the salaries of staff?
Well, you have to ask the government. I'm not the government.
I mean, that's not the government's role, right?
Well, when they do something so drastic, including that now they have law that can shut us down for 2 weeks, for a month, whatever they want to do, if they deem it necessary to combat COVID-19, then they will have to come out to help. If they don't, eventually it will cost them. Because when 200,000 people go out of a job in the restaurant trade, they will have to come up with money to take care of these 200,000 families. So to help us to keep our business ongoing, to give jobs to these people, it's necessary.
I've got to end the show. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Good evening.